Make a big deal of it.
Here today with Robert Stanley, promoter, owner, worker, everything for HCWA. Does it all?
Pretty much.
I guess you do everything but run the concession stand, don't you?
I'm going to tell you what, I've had to run back there a time or two, I think.
But we're just going to talk with him a few minutes today about what it's like to run an independent federation in 2013. You know, we was talking a while ago, it's a lot more to it than what it was even 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah, big time.
So if you want to elaborate on that just a little bit and let us know what you do and what goes into putting on the show.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, number one, you obviously got to have a venue. If you don't have a venue, you don't have a show. You get your venue picked out. It's got to be a good, centralized location, somewhere that, a lot of people, know where it's at, easy to get to, easy to find for the ones that don't. We've been blessed enough at HCWA that we pretty much locked in with the Wentworth National Guard Armory now, which is right dead in the center of Rockingham County, about 45 minutes north of Greensboro, North Carolina. And, we just rocking and rolling it once a month down there, Once you got your venue locked in, the next biggest thing, you got to have talent. You got to have guys that are, you got to have guys that the fans can connect to. And the thing of it is, professional wrestling's a lost art.
Very much so.
There's a lot of people nowadays that think, oh, I do this big flashy move, I do this set of big flashy moves, one right behind the other, and everybody's gonna come pay to see me do that. And to an extent, they got a point, but it's not as much. You got to be able to have a variety of things. You got to, anybody that's seen me out there that's come watch me wrestle, thank you first of all. But
get that plug in.
Get that out there, because the one thing about it with HCWA is that we do appreciate our fans, and we realize that at the end of the day, the fans are the ones we're doing it for. And that I'll touch more on that in a few minutes. But as far as the talent's concerned, like I said, you got to have people that are going to connect with the audience. May not be somebody that's ready to step into a WWE ring or a TNA ring next Thursday or next Monday. It's a learning process. It's a building process for a lot of guys. Some guys get it. Some guys embellish it. Some guys get to the point to where they can get noticed by somebody from WWE or somebody from TNA. Unfortunately, for every one that goes to WWE or TNA, there's about anywhere from 30 to 100 that'll never make it farther than where we're at now. But those guys still, they have the dream of wanting to be a professional wrestler, the love of the business, wanting to be a part of the business, and that's what we try to give them at HCWA is, like I said, with the fans, got to be something that the fans can catch on to, because at the end of the day, if you don't have fans coming, you don't have a promotion. You're spinning your wheels. So you do that kind of stuff. You get the guys in there that, can pop that crowd, can get, as we say in the business, can pop that crowd, and go out there and get the things done. Give the fans the show they want to see. Because like I said, at the end of the day, and that's what I was going to say a few minutes ago, it's all about the fans.
Right.
Another thing that's really hurt the wrestling business. I'm glad that the wrestling business is as mainstream as it is, to the point that the outreach is there for more people to get involved. What's really hurt the business is, for one, right off gate, egos.
Right.
Brother, I have dealt with so many egos in the last 15 years of being in this business, it's pathetic. And it's like, so many guys and girls lose sight of the fact that we're there for the fans.
Right.
They're thinking, hey, I got this show this Saturday night, and, I'm going to go in there and I'm wrestling this guy, and I'm going to get this spot in, and I'm going to get that spot in, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the other, and it's going to be the greatest thing ever.
Right.
And the fans are sitting there just like this.
Right. Well, you mentioned, that fan wrestler connection. You've got to have that. That's got to be in there first and foremost. If the fans can't relate to them, well, like I mentioned in my last column about Dusty Rhodes, when he talked about fighting for the common man back in the 80s, dude, I'm a kid. I'm going, he's fighting for me.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we've lost that. We've lost that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like I was going to say a few minutes ago, in my character and in what I do when I'm in between these ropes. That's something that I try to do, is I try to reach out to the crowd. And I've been lucky enough and blessed enough by the good Lord to have the talent to be able to go in the ring and be able to talk streak. And I can get across, and a lot of people, and you've seen me wrestle, Tim, you know what it's like, you know what I'm about. I've been able to even go so far as to transcend and me and my boys that are in our group, the Confederate Horsemen, have been able to even go so far as to transcend people trying to pull the race card, because we're always out there in our Confederate flags.
Right.
And it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, yellow, tan, green, orange, or purple. They're out there cheering for the Confederate Horsemen. And it's because we're doing stuff, and we're doing stuff in a manner that the fans want to see it, in a manner that it's getting across to the fans. Like you were saying, regardless of what the guy's wearing,
you relate.
You relate. There's that connection. You got to have that connection with your fans, And it's like I said, you get so many guys that come in there and think, oh, it's all about my match. It's all about my match. Guys, I'm sorry. It's not all about your match. It's about the show as a whole. And it's about the connection, like I said, with the fans, because without the fans, you got nothing.
Right.
That's at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. We're not here to preach a message about this or preach a message about that. At the same time, you can still make that connection with the fans if there's a point that you're trying to get across. But without that connection, again, there's nothing.
Right, and like you said, we've got to have that. And it's not so much about that one match, but like you said, that show as a whole. I remember as a kid, you sit down and you watch Starrcade, and from the time it started till the time it ends, man, they tore the house down. It's hard to say, okay, Starrcade '87, this was the best match, because they were all good.
Absolutely.
And now you sit down and you watch a pay-per-view, you pay your $40 or your $50, and you go, man, this match was this one was okay, and this one was a little bit better, but you've got to tear the house down from start to finish.
Absolutely.
And that's what you guys are striving to do. We were talking about Crockett Promotions earlier. Man, I'm a big fan still, even to this day. Wish they were still around.
Yeah.
If anybody sees this, hey, get it going again.
Yeah.
But that's what these guys are trying to get going, and hey, come check these guys out in Wentworth. You will not be disappointed. There's no way around it, because they're building that.
Well, I mean, it's the old school feel, and the thing of it is, and I know I'm kind of, not like I'm the first guy to do it on the internet. I know I'm kind of stretching kayfabe a little bit when I say this, but you got to have the storylines there. You got to have something for the people to follow. In 15 years I've been doing this. It's like I go to this promotion, and it's like, okay, you're tagging with this guy, and then you go back to the promotion the next month or 2 weeks later or whatever, and it's like, okay, I don't have anything else going on tonight, so you're working this guy tonight. You're wrestling him. No story, no background, no nothing. Whether we won or whether we lost the tag match the show before is totally irrelevant.
Right.
If we lost the tag match and you want us to wrestle each other on the next show, then have one of us get mad at the other one. Boom.
Somewhere at the end of that match.
Somewhere at the end of that match. Do something. Have a story. Have something there for the fans to follow. And it's just not happening in a lot of places.
It's like they put all the names in a hat and say, okay, here you go. Here's your opponent. Here you go.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that there again, that is legitimately something else that on the indie circuit that can hurt you. Is, a lot of times guys are not making guaranteed money. A lot of times guys are not making anything, period. And, other than the experience factor and the learning experience. The experience factor, getting out in front of the crowd, and the learning experience, I should have said, excuse me. But, I mean, the thing of it is like, there's no guarantees as from the promotional end of it. You can say, it's easy to say, okay, well, let's do this. We're going to do this over this course of this many shows. But then, real life happens every day. Somebody's got a death in the family. Somebody's got a car broke down. Somebody gets called into their bill payer. Stuff happens, and there's no way around it. And you have to be creative enough as a promoter and as the quote-unquote writer, booker, whatever terminology you want to use, to be able to cover that. Right. And luckily I've been blessed enough in HCWA that we've got such a good crew of guys, such a dedicated crew of guys, that, you know, it makes my job a lot easier when I'm doing stuff like that, and I'm trying to be creative and, you know, and put together shows that the people are going to want to see, storylines that the people are going to want to follow, with talent that people are going to want to pay their money to come see.
Right.
And we've pretty much been blessed all the way across the board, and I think everybody for the most part, you know, just like anywhere else, you're going to have a few of them that are kind of maybe not exactly, you know, on the same. You know, on the same path. They might be on the same train, but they're not going the same direction.
Right.
That's going to happen in any walk of life. But for the most part, pretty much everybody is on board with the fact that what we want to try to do is we want to try to put together something that reminds the fans of the Crockett days, but at the same time has like the new school TNA WWE / twists and turns. And, you know, you got to... As much as you want to go old school, you have to have that modern,
right,
that modern type of stuff along with it too, or else, you know, the younger crowd, the younger kids that are all into guys like Cena and Mysterio and Hardy and those guys, you got to have something along those lines that can bite those kids too. But then at the same time, you got their parents sitting there that want to see Dusty Rhodes, that want to see Magnum TA,
right,
that want to see the Rock and Roll Express, Jake the Snake Roberts, Ricky Steamboat type of stuff, Ric Flair type of stuff,
right,
Tully Blanchard type of stuff. There's got to be that variety. There's got to be that mix.
How do you find that mix?
It's not easy.
How creative do you have to be to find that mix?
It's not easy, brother. Again, I have been blessed by the Lord to be able to have the knowledge that I have of the business, be able to come up with stuff like that. It's not easy, and sometimes it gets very testing. Sometimes it gets very stressful.
I don't think I want to walk a mile in your shoes,
to say the least. But you know, the thing of it is, once you get it all together, it's magic. You know, like Dusty Rhodes used to say, every time him and Ric Flair touched, it was magic. And that's the way it feels to me every time HCWA walks into Wentworth Armory. You know, now am I going to sit here and say every show is perfect? Am I going to say, you know, this is, you know, Dreamland, or this is Oz, so to speak,
right,
or whatever? You know, no. I mean, you know, there are issues just like anywhere else.
Right.
But for the most part, you know, we've got it now to where you can kind of get a feel of who's really dedicated to the product, who's going to be working the hardest for the product, and you know, who's doing what they can do to try to help in any way imaginable to try to help the product get out there and build and grow. And
that's the ultimate goal, you know, to have 1,500 people in the crowd.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, and I think you guys can do that. I mean, you just need that little push, and y'all pushing hard.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know,
well, I mean,
the right person to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sky's the limit.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you know, it's like anything else. It's a building process. You know, at the end of the day, there's a reason they call it the wrestling business. Mm-hmm. You know, you can't build a business. You got to have your rocks and your bricks to build your foundation before you start throwing the wood in there and the framing. Then you get to your roof.
Yeah, you don't start with the roof and work your way down.
Right, exactly. So I mean, you know, it's a building process. We're coming up on our second anniversary. You know, a lot of the people that in this area know this is the second promotion I've started from the ground up. We won't get into details on what happened with the first one. Let's just say there's a lot of crooks in the wrestling business, and we'll leave it at that. But you know, this is the second promotion I've started from the ground up. We're coming up on our 2-year anniversary, when a lot of people were saying that they didn't think HCWA would last 3 shows. Here we are going into our second anniversary now. You know, and it's rock and roll, man. I mean, you know, it's growing like crazy. You know, I'm seeing a lot of stuff, people talking about us a lot on Facebook and stuff. You know, I've been blessed to meet a lot of people in the 15 years that I've been doing this. You know, I've dealt with a lot of people in this business. Done shows with the Barbarian, done shows with Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, Buff Bagwell, the Road Warriors, God rest Hawk's soul. They came in and worked for my first promotion in 2002. You know, just a lot of people that I've dealt with that you know, were my childhood heroes growing up. You know, I mean, for crying out loud, I got Jimmy Valiant's home phone number saved in my phone. He's one of the 3 reasons I'm sitting here. You know, because my 3 main influences were Valiant, Flair, and Michael Hayes. were my three main influences for even wanting to do this to start with. And it's ironic now because everybody compares me to a modern day Dusty as far as the level of, you know, where we're at is concerned.
Right.
You know, they compare me to like a modern day Dusty by the type of character that I do. You know, I do the big flip flop and fly bit, the whole 9 yards. You know, but you know, it's crazy how it works. Right. The inner workings, the inner structure of the business. Like I said, I grew up watching these guys, and now, you know, I'm blessed enough and lucky enough to call some of them acquaintances, and other ones I can actually call my friends. You know,
a whole lot more than just showing up at the Armory, setting the ring up, throwing some guys in there, and then going home.
It's a brotherhood. At the end of the day, you know, with the exception of the guys who think that, you know, their fecal matter don't stink. You know, with the exception of those guys, it's a brotherhood. You know what I mean? And we're lucky enough in our business to have that. You know, there's a lot of people. You know, you don't go to your weekly job in a mill and have a forklift union, a forklift drivers union. Right. You know what I'm saying? You don't have you know, your spinners or your doffers at a cotton plant, you know, having their own little bit.
Right.
You know, with wrestling we have that. You know, we're lucky, we're blessed to have that. And you know, like I said, you know, out of everybody I've dealt with that I've met personally in 15 years, you know, I can honestly say there's only about a handful of them that I don't really have a whole lot of use for. Most everybody I've met and everybody I've dealt with, I've got a lot of respect for. You know, and again, you know, just lucky enough to have gotten into this thing because, you know, when I was 7 years old, I told my grandpa I wanted to be a wrestler, and he says, "Son, go get it. Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to earn it."
Right.
Just like anything else in life, that's what you want to do. You got to earn it. And you know, I've been blessed enough and lucky enough to be able to do that. So.
Right. Well, man, I appreciate you taking a few minutes with us.
Well, I appreciate you, you know, wanting to come out and do this thing. And you know, like I said, you know, you guys support Tim. Check his columns out, man, because you know he's knocking home runs. You know, the whole deal with like what's went wrong with the business. You know, it's a good read because you know, it touches on a lot of points. You know, something that I did want to talk about before we get out of here. You know, like I said, you know, you got so many things going on in our business today that is just mind-boggling to me. You know, you're talking about the differences between like 2013 and 2000. Right. You know, 13, 15 years ago, and you know, it's a totally different world. You know, it's
like a whole nother lifetime ago, really.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. When I started 15 years ago, it's just like a dream sequence to me a lot of times. You know, in comparison to the way things are done and the way things go now, and it's a lot of it again is adaptation for the fans.
Right.
You know, because again, the business evolves. You have to try to evolve with it, but at the same time, you still got that loyal fan base, that loyal base from, you know, 84 to 92 demographic that want to see, like I said, they want to see the Dusty Rhodes and the Magnum TAs and the Nikita Koloffs, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express, you know, all these great guys and absolutely tremendous talents that always kept the fans right here in the palm of their hand. You know, regardless of what they did. It is an art form in itself, and it's like, you know, people look at today's stars and their ability to hold a crowd, and you know, there's really a limited handful that can actually do that now. Yeah. And it's sad. It's really sad because you look at, like I was just saying, the 84 to 92 demographic. You know, again, Dusty, Magnum, you know, the Horsemen, just everything they said. The fans, it didn't matter if they liked them or they hated them. Right. They hinged on every word those guys said, yep. Every action those guys did. And today, you know, although I'm probably gonna catch a lot of guff from the IWC on this, The Rock. Nobody in the last 10 years can hold a crowd like The Rock can hold a crowd in the palm of his hand. Love him or hate him, Hollywood movie star or pro wrestler, nobody holds a crowd like The Rock.
Right.
Bottom line. Cena comes a close second. The thing with Cena is, and this is my opinion, they should have turned Cena heel 3 years ago. Granted, he wouldn't have been done as much of the Make-A-Wish stuff for the kids, which I applaud him for.
Right.
That's great stuff, and it takes, you know, it takes a heck of a man with a heck of a heart to take his time out of his schedule
Right.
to go do that stuff for these terminally ill children, and I applaud him for it. But you know, at the end of the day, there's still got to be something in your mind about the product and what you're doing for a living,
Right.
and what's going to work. And you know, the whole split down the middle thing, you know, and I honestly hate to say this because I like to think anything's possible in the wrestling business. But I don't see any way humanly possible that they will ever make John Cena a flat-out good guy again, because they've shoved it down so many people's throats for so many years that if CM Punk came out there with a shotgun and shot somebody in the front row and was going to shoot somebody in the front row and John Cena come out to save him, and hit Punk before Punk could pull the trigger, I think the crowd would be pissed off at Cena for stopping it. I honestly do. And I mean, you know, I hate to say it like that, but I mean, it's just, Cena's been shoved down everybody's throat for so long. People, I mean, there are a lot of people, yeah, there are a lot of people that are fed up with it. You know, as much as I hate to say it, it's not the 80s.
Right.
As much as I want it to be, as much of the 80s as we're trying to bring back, you can't take somebody in 2013 like John Cena and shove them down people's throats like you did that big guy in the red and yellow back in '86. You can't shove them down people's throat like that and expect the people to keep chewing and keep chewing and keep chewing.
Right. Sooner or later they're going to gag and that reflex is going to come up.
Exactly, and that's what's happened with Cena. But I mean, you know, the state of the business and the way it is, you know, like I said, I'm beating a dead horse, saying it over and over again. It's not the 80s, but people should go back there.
Right.
People should go back there and try to do what we're trying to do, bring more of the 80s in with that 2013 mix. Because if we did that, if we could find the formula to make that work, this business will blow up again.
Find that right balance.
You know, there's always been a roller coaster ride in the business. The business was way up here in the mid 80s to early 90s, went straight downhill until Scott Hall walked on Nitro in '96, and then it went straight back up again. And then in '01, when Vince bought everything, it went straight back down again. And it's
the bad part is it's kind of leveled out down there.
Right. It's exactly. It's kind of leveled off, and it needs something. It needs something to kick it back up. And it's obvious right now that McMahon and WWE are complacent with where their product is right now, because they're not really doing a whole lot to change it. You know, like I said, you got a handful of guys that can control a crowd. Another one, too, I'm real high on in WWE. I'm going to throw this in there, too. And the guys that know me, that I'm the good guy, might be a little shocked when I say this, but I'm one of the biggest Dolph Ziggler fans on the planet. Ziggler's got the charisma. Ziggler's got the work ethic in the ring. He's amazing. I love watching Dolph Ziggler work. Throw that part in there. And the crowd, when he won the title, when he cashed in on Del Rio, was priceless. I mean, when was the last time you heard a crowd pop that big for a heel? Right. They know the guy deserves it. You know, but like I said, the product overall has become complacent in WWE. You know, Vince is making his money. That's all he's worried about. You know, tickets for WrestleMania, $2,000 for front row. You know, I know people that said they were buying tickets in the balcony at $300 and $400 a pop.
That's crazy.
And MetLife Stadium was sold out. Vince ain't worried. No. I mean, everything's complacent. He's making his money. You know, he's making back the money he lost trying to get Linda in Congress. You know, he's making his money back, so he's not worried. You know why? You know, he did bring Rock back for ratings, and you know that's another argument too. That's another argument too. Everybody running their mouth about how Rock needed the money. The guy's worth $75 million. He didn't need the money. No. He came back for the fans that actually appreciated who he was and how he worked. He didn't come back for the money. No. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life.
You know, you mentioned about Ziggler being a heel, and I think one thing too, anymore, that line between heel and babyface is so blurred. It's so blurred, and I think it's one thing that we relate to back to the 80s stuff. It was a definitive line there. You knew who was a bad guy, and you knew who was a good guy. And now that line's become so blurred, and that's one reason that I have such an appreciation for CM Punk. Right now, that man's the ultimate heel. I mean, you know, I mentioned in my first column, you don't know when he comes out on the ramp whether he's going to insult you personally, or he might even insult your religious beliefs by calling himself God. But he's going to get a pop out of you some way or the other.
Absolutely.
And if you boo him or if you cheer him, he still wins.
Absolutely.
Because he goes back and he says, "That was me."
He was going to be the last one that I was going to mention in that handful that's got a crowd right here. Punk and Heyman. Heyman, you know, there's been an argument over who was the best manager of all time. You know, and the argument can be made for J.J. Dillon. The argument can be made for Classy Freddie Blassie. The argument can be made for Jim Cornette. The argument can be made for so many guys. You know, the two in my mind that were the ultimate managers above and beyond all else. Well, there's actually three. If I had to name my top three, it'd be J.J., it'd be Cornette, and it'd be Heyman. Not necessarily in that order, but those would be the three. Because those guys could go out there and get such an emotion out of the crowd. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're there for.
You want to feel that emotional connection.
Yeah, and it's like Heyman. One of the things I like the most about Heyman is that Heyman still draws the appreciation from the crowd. Because here it is, 2013, 12 years after the demise of ECW, and every single time that guy walks out of the curtain, that's all you hear.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're in St. Louis, if they're in Phoenix, if they're in Los Angeles, if they're in Portland, Maine, if they're in Birmingham, England. It makes no difference. ECW. You know, Heyman's garnered that respect from the fans, regardless of whether they like the fact that, you know, he's with Lesnar, he's with Punk, he's a heel, whatever. They still have that respect for him because of the work that he did, the groundbreaking work that he did to build ECW into what it once was. Right. You know, and you know that on a final note to wrap this interview up, that's another thing too that the business is missing. Respect. Yep. You know whether that ties into the guys that have got the big egos, whether that ties into the guys that are just thinking, hey, I can go in here and do my high spots and get out of here and go home, and I've stole the show and I've had the match of the night. You know, I've worked matches that I've gone through tables, off of ladders, into thumbtacks, hit with barbed wire sticks, had fireballs thrown in my face. I mean, you name it, 15 years, I've done all that crazy stuff, you know. And I've also went out there and had an actual hold-for-hold, move-for-move wrestling match that my back actually hit the mat twice or three times during the match, and got just as big of a crowd response. Right. For move-for-move, hold-for-hold, and very few, as what we call in the business, bumps, as I have for doing the crazy stuff. Right. You know, and I mean, that's the thing, you know, the respect of the business in itself, the respect of going out there, performing for that crowd, and knowing when is the right time to do all that wild and crazy stuff, and when is the right time to dial it in, have a good wrestling match. Right. Have a good wrestling match without the you know, corkscrew 450s and the suicide planchas and all that stuff. All that stuff's great, don't get me wrong. I'm not downing it by any means. And I got a ton of respect in the world for anybody that can do that kind of stuff. I can't get my big hind end up there and do it, for God's sakes. And I got respect for the guys that can do it. You know, but it's the respect thing, man. You gotta have respect, most of all for the fans. Right. You know, one of our fans was telling me that they was at a local show, and I won't mention anything as far as names of the promotion or names of the people involved, but again, out of respect. But he was telling me that he had went to a show that he had been backing, supporting this promotion for a long time. And he got into an altercation with one of the wrestlers. And, you know, when you're a heel, you go out of that curtain, you're a bad guy, the fans don't like you, you got to be ready for anything. Right. You got to be ready for the fans to talk about you, to cuss you out, to talk about your mama, to talk about your daddy, to talk about your granny. you know, you got to be man enough to soak that in and be smart enough on how to give it back.
Right.
And this certain fan that comes to our shows and goes to other shows around in the area, he had messaged me and told me about he had went to this show. And they got a guy there who in his own right is a really good, really good, solid wrestler. The guy's, you know, he's got his stuff together in between here, in between the ropes. He's really good. The fan called him a jobber.
Ooh.
Okay, well, I've been called a effing piece of you know what when I was a heel. Okay, you know, that's the fan's opinion of me.
Right.
That's the kind of heat that I want. I'd rather them call me names than sit there and look at me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're getting that reaction.
But a jobber, I mean, yeah, because your ultimate goal as a wrestler is to get a reaction. When you go out of that curtain, you either got them screaming, hooping, hollering, and you know, ready to stand beside of you and battle right beside of you to the end, or you got them waiting in the parking lot, waiting on you to come out of the building.
With ball bats.
With a ball bat,
Beer
and a
bottle.
2x4, and a beer ball, and anything else ain't fine, wanting to beat the crap out of you. You know, one extreme or the other, you want some kind of reaction when you go out there. But anyway, back to the story. This guy calls this wrestler a jobber, and the wrestler takes it upon himself to go up and shove him.
Wow.
Rule number 1, unless a fan puts his hands physically on the wrestler, physically puts his hands on a wrestler, or spits at the wrestler or something like that, does something in a physical nature to the wrestlers never, under any circumstances, lay their hands on the fan.
Right.
That's ultimate disrespect to that fan. If you can't take the fact that the fan's calling you names, then maybe you should buy a ticket and sit beside that fan and watch the show.
That's right.
Because then the fan is working you. Mm-hmm. You're not working that fan.
That's right.
You're not pulling emotions out of that fan. The fan is pulling them out of you. To the point if you're gonna walk up and shove a fan. So I mean, you know, I just, you know, I've been told horror stories about wrestlers going around spitting on fans. I was told that this one wrestler one time in the middle of a match wiped his armpits in his hands and then wiped them on a little sides of a little kid's head.
Wow.
Yeah. Guys, if you don't have any more respect for the fans than that, you don't have any more respect for the business than that, and you can't get yourself over without doing stuff like that, buy a ticket.
Stay home one.
Buy a ticket and watch. Because they're evoking that same emotion out of you that you're supposed to be trying to evoke out of them, and it don't work like that. It just does not work like that. That to me, you have to. You want to get that emotion out of the crowd. You want to be able to have that crowd right here, but you don't want to turn around and physically just pop a fan. No. You know, first of all, it's assault. You can actually get charged and go to jail for that, or at least get a big fine for it if the fan really wants to take it that far. You know, you could get the wrestling promotion that you're working for sued over it. You know, be smart, guys. I mean, it's respect. It's all it is, plain and simple. And if you don't have respect for the business, you don't have respect for the fans, then you don't have respect for yourself, and you don't need to be doing this.
Right.
Just plain and simple.
Go flip burgers at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one thing. You go back to those days, you know, the difference between 2013 and the 80s and stuff like that is that no matter how Ric Flair would sit there and argue with a fan in the crowd, no matter when Wahoo was a bad guy, no matter how much Wahoo sit there and argued with a fan in the crowd, as long as the fan didn't do something first, right, that's all it was an argument. Now you can best believe if a fan spit on Wahoo or pushed Wahoo, Wahoo was whooping somebody's hind end.
Yep. You
best believe Wahoo was one of the most legit tough guys there ever was in this business. But Wahoo knew the line.
Right.
You argue with that fan, you evoke that emotion out of that fan's going to go home and talk about that argument for months.
Yeah.
You got them hooked. Because the next time you come to town, guess who's going to be buying a ticket? Going to be trying to get in Wahoo's face again.
Sitting in the front row all over again.
Yeah, yeah. They went from spending $10 for or back then they went from spending $5 for a ticket to sit on the 7th or 8th row. They're spending $9 at the next show to get that front row seat so they can get right in Wahoo's face when he comes out. Wahoo's done his job.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Wahoo's done his job.
Very well.
That's the way this is supposed to be done. That's the way this is supposed to be constructed. That's the way this is supposed to be viewed. That's the way this is supposed to happen.
That's right.
You know, and spitting on fans and pushing fans and shoving fans and wiping your sweaty armpit crap on a little kid's head, that ain't wrestling, guys. It's not wrestling. It's crap. That's what it is. Work the fans. But at the same time, you have to respect them, because what you have forgotten and what so many others have forgotten, the fans are who we're there for.
That's right.
They're the reasons we do what we do. They're the reasons we go out there and you know, risk breaking our neck, risk breaking our back, breaking our legs, arms, concussions. You know, 15 years, I've had 2 concussions, severely separated shoulder, severely sprained elbow, and both my knees are shot. And I'm not even 40 years old yet, brother.
Sound like an old man.
I'm not even 40 years old yet. You know, I mean, I've had sciatic nerve issues, my legs going to sleep and everything else. I'm not even 40. You know, it's what we do for the fans.
Right.
You know, and you know, whether you're working for HCWA, whether you're working for other local promotions, you know, guys like, I'm going to go ahead and name drop this because I do respect these guys, and I respect a lot of the guys that work in each one of these locker rooms. You know, you're working for local promotions like the AIWF, CWF, you know, NSW down in Graham. You know, you're working for these local promotions. You're there for the fans. You're there. You're there to give the people that are working in that, or you know, that are coming, paying their money to come into that building and watch you perform. You're there for them. You're there to give them a show, not to give yourself one. Because the bottom line of it is, you know, these big ego guys, you can't go out here and wrestle yourself 7 matches. You can't go in there and wrestle yourself for 1 match. You're there for the people. You're not there like that. You know, the self-experience, the self-gratification is the crowd pop. The self-gratification is being good enough in here and good enough behind a microphone that Bruce Pritchard or Al Snow sees a video of you and wants to add you to TNA's Gut Check. Or, you know, somebody that's working for Vince catches an eye of your video on YouTube or something, or catches, you know, some sort of video or something that you're doing and wants to bring you in to work for WWE.
Right.
That's the self-gratification. Then you've made it. Then you're making good money. You're getting your name out there. But at the same time, no, baby, not right now. At the same time, you're getting that self-gratification. You're being able to do this for a living now. You're not having to work on Monday through Friday and then go wrestle on Saturday night or wrestle on Friday night, stuff like that. I wrestled for a local promotion, EAW, last night over here in Eden. You know, you're doing that stuff, and then you've got your regular bill payer that you're doing during the week. You get noticed for WWE, you get noticed for TNA. There's your self-gratification. There's your paychecks. But never lose sight. You know, you're not doing this for you. You're doing it for the crowd.
That's right.
You know, that's what it's about. And like I said, you know, I know I'm a bit long-winded, but I'm going to wrap this up. HCWA, that's what we're about. We're about the fans.
That's right.
And, you know, we're about bringing back that old school feel, bringing back the storyline-driven shows that gives the people something to follow from start to finish. You're not going to have 2 matches at a HCWA show that's got a storyline and everything else is a cluster that's just thrown together. Everything is going to tie in, and even if it doesn't tie in your mind when you see it, you think, well, how's this going to tie into this guy or that guy? It's where the shock value comes in.
That's right. And we've lost that as well.
Yeah, we've lost shock value. You know, we just our last show, April 13th, we had 3 surprises in one show. You know, that's another thing that HCWA has become known for, is the shock value. I like shocking people. You know, our very first show almost 2 years ago, people in this area knew that me and Chris Nelson, who wrestled under the name Slim Jim Bolin, that there was a ton of legitimate heat between me and Chris, to the point that I had actually went so far as to physically threaten bodily harm to Chris if I ever saw him again. And we put all that stuff aside, and I go out for a tag match. Music hits, he comes out, and everybody's like, "What?" You know, that's what you got to have in this business. You got to have that kind of shock value. And at our last show, excuse me, somebody who'd been involved with my former promotion, my original promotion, Big Daddy Eric Edwards, shows up to do a run-in to when Johnny Roxville was getting beat up, 2-on-1, he was getting jumped. Then I bring, you know, Big Daddy Eric Edwards. Everybody around this area knows who Eric Edwards is. He's a great guy. He's an incredible talent. You know, you know, Big Daddy's about as solid as they get, wrestler wise. You know, he's good on the microphone, great in the ropes. You know, good stuff. Then, you know, again, I like nostalgia. I like the kickbacks, the big comebacks, stuff that nobody sees coming. Terminator X. Terminator X was on the independent circuit in this area the closest thing I would say to a legend.
Oh yeah.
The stuff that TX did from '97 to 2001, just in that 4-year span, were like legendary in this area.
Unparalleled.
Absolutely, without question. The stuff him and Brian Danzig used to do to each other was it ought to have been criminal.
Yeah.
The barbed wire match they did with the barbed wire wrapped up their forearms, craziness stuff they did. Terminator comes back. People have been asking, where's Terminator X? Has anybody heard from Terminator X? Hadn't been in the ring in 6 years, and even then he was only in it for just like I think like a couple of shows maybe, and that was it. And he was, you know, from then on, I mean, nobody had heard from him since '01. You know, so to bring Terminator back in, you know, big time stuff, humongous crowd pop. You know, Terminator X in this area was just so huge, and then for him to be gone for that amount of time and everybody still remembers him is a testament to his work.
Right.
And then when JB Smooth Enterprises was jumping me and attacking me, not only did TX come out to save me, but another one that everybody around here just, you know, the man, well, Sweet Daddy. Sweet Daddy hits the ring right behind TX to save me. The crowd reaction was priceless. You know,
Sure.
Would have been priceless seeing the look on a couple of different promoters' faces, local promoters' faces too.
Yeah, they were probably picking their jaws up too. I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, you know, but that's the hook, Tim. You got to have the good, solid storylines. You got to have talent in there that the fans can bite on, that the fans can latch on to, whether they be good guys, whether they be bad guys, whether they be baby faces, heels, whatever terminology you want to use. You got to have that, and you got to have that shock value. You know, regardless of the fact that Eric Bischoff may have possibly had the major role in driving WCW into the ground, he's still a smart man nonetheless. And controversy creates cash. In his words, it was all about shock value. How shocked was everybody in May of '96 when Scott Hall walks through the crowd, hops the guardrail, gets in the ring and cuts a promo on Ted Turner and the Nacho Man. You know, that classic stuff, you know what I mean? The next week, turn around, there's Nash. Everybody thought, hey, wait a minute, this is Vince McMahon in the WWF. They're invading WCW.
Right.
Because Hall and Nash, two of the biggest stars in Vince's promotion at the time.
Yeah.
And then kaboom,
They just jumped ship.
they jump ship with no warning, and within 2 weeks they're both on TV. Everybody's thinking, holy crap, this is McMahon invading WCW. Is the first thought in the fans' mind. There's your shock value.
Right.
You got to have that. Without that, you got nothing.
That's right.
You got nothing. You know, so I mean, you got to put it all together, have that combination, and we've been lucky enough at HCWA to be able to build that.
Right.
And you know, I'm really grateful. You know, like I said, to the Lord above for giving me the creativity to do the stuff that I can do to try to help build this company. Excuse me. You know, I've got just a incredible locker room. I legitimately love each and every person in that locker room like they were my own brother or sister. You know, we've got a great crew of guys. Like I said, you know, it's a building process. Not everybody that's in our locker room is ready to go to WWE or TNA tomorrow. Like I said earlier, you know, it's a building process. Some of these guys may possibly one day get there. Other ones are going to be right here on this level from now on until they either can't do it no more or decide to hang it up. But either way it goes, right now we've just got an incredible locker room. I could not be happier with the way things are going with HCWA. Like I said, the big shock values. The Sovereign used to be known as the Crusade of Change. They showed up a few shows ago. Bill McMichaels, Matt Sulphur, Chris Phoenix, Fugitive Wildchild. You know, the influx of talent that's been coming in, the influx of talent that is still to this day making communication with me about wanting to come in. It's just it's great stuff. It's just really been an awesome ride, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going to go from here.
I think, you know, personally, I think your best days are ahead of you. I think the trials and tribulations of building this thing, that they're getting fewer and farther between.
They really are.
And you're going to hear a lot more out of these guys before it's over with. I promise you that.
Yeah, I hope so. And Tim, I thank you. I thank you again for the interview.
Sure.
I appreciate you coming down. And like I said, you know, our next show for anybody that's going to be in the area is May the 11th at the Wentworth Armory. Like I said, that's HCWA's home right now. We're looking to hopefully in the near future we'll be expanding. We'll be getting out and doing more shows in different places. But you know, my whole philosophy is let's build Wentworth back to the wrestling town that it used to be.
Right.
Let's build this Rockingham County back to the wrestling area that it used to be. Then we can start going other places. Then we come back home. You know, we can start running more shows, start doing more things, start getting out there more. But you got to get your home base solidified and back to where it should be. There's been so many different wrestling promotions, and I use that term loosely, that have come around this area recently, and you know they've pretty much killed it.
Right.
You know, and it's taken a lot of hard work, and you know, luckily by hook or by crook, you know, we and EAW are the only promotions really left in Rockingham County right now at this point. Others may end up getting back on their feet. They may not. You know, that's on them. That's their business. I'm worried about mine. You know, I'm worried about us. And like I said, right now things are rolling really good for HCWA. Like I said, you know, influx of talent's great. You know, been dealing with a lot of different people that I've talked to, name-wise. Been talking to Doc from the Aces and Eights. You know, he was in December, wanting to come back. Talked to Christian York. He's wanting to come up. You know, I've talked to several different guys that, you know, I'm in the process is right now trying to work something out to get some of these guys up here. I got others that I'm wanting to make connections to as far as like from the old school.
Right.
I know there's a show up in Martinsville, Virginia tonight that you're going to that I'm supposed to be going to as well. I've been hearing rumors the Midnight Express was going to be there, and that's the main reason I want to go.
That's right.
That's the main reason I want to go up there. I've actually got a picture of Bobby Eaton, who I agree with Ric Flair is probably the most underrated wrestler in the history of this business.
Good possibility.
Flair said that, and I totally agree with him. Bobby Eaton was amazing in his day. There's really no reason why Bobby Eaton couldn't have been the World Heavyweight Champion. Flair said that, and I totally agree with him. Flair's not the only one that said that either, but I totally agree. Bobby's amazing, and I've got a picture of Bobby holding my youngest son when my youngest son was 5 weeks old. And, you know, call it a mark-out moment for me if you want to, but I want to get that picture autographed.
That's cool.
You know,
That's good stuff.
you know.
And see, that's that connection we were talking about right there. I mean, you go back to the 80s, man, with Bobby Eaton, and that connection's still there, even now.
Yep.
And you know, that's what we're missing, and that's what you guys are trying to bring back.
Oh, absolutely.
And I appreciate that. My hat's off to you. I applaud you, everything for it.
I appreciate it.
So,
you know, like we were saying, you know, it's a lot of hard work just trying to get all the pieces together at one time. It's a lot of hard work, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. When I go out there and the shows are over and the people in the crowd are coming up to me, it was like, man, Robbie, it was another awesome show, man. That show was great. That show was awesome. And to get that kind of feedback from the fans, you know, like I said, I mean, this promotion's been going almost 2 years, and to this day, the only complaint I've ever heard out of anybody was, hey, man, your show ran a little bit too long. And then when I heard that complaint, then I had another guy over here saying, dude, nobody else gives us that much show for that kind of money.
right.
And we love it. We love the fact that sometimes your shows ain't over till 11, 11:30, and you're starting at 7:30. You're giving us 3.5, sometimes 4 hours of wrestling, $8 for front row, $5 for general admission, when other people are charging us $10 for a ticket, and they're out of there in 2.5 hours, and we're on the way home.
Right.
You know, and the same fan I was talking about that got pushed at that other show, he was telling me one time he had went to a show. It wasn't one of theirs, but it was a show that he had went to that, or it may have been one of theirs. I don't quite remember. But anyway, he told me he went to a show, and he always takes like 7 or 8 people with him every time he goes. So they had paid $10 a ticket, 2.5 hours. He was back at home.
Wow.
And he was asking me. I saw him at another show. We just ran into each other at another show I was renting my ring for. And he come up to me and he was asking how the show went, and I was telling him, you know, it was like 11:05 when the main event was going in to start. And I won't say the first word he said because I know this is going live on the internet, so I'm trying not to cuss. But he was like really surprised. He was like, you know, 11:05, I was at home in the bed.
Wow.
That show was over, and I done drove 20 minutes back home, then got in, got relaxed, kicked back, and 11:05 I was in the bed.
Wow.
You know, so you know it's a teeter-totter effect.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have fans that are gonna be happy that you're doing those long shows. You're gonna have other fans that's like, golly, man, I'm glad I spent my money to come, but can we please go home? You know, it's that kind of an effect. But at the end of the day, either way it goes, everybody's leaving happy.
That's right.
When it's all said and done.
That's right.
You know,
That's what it's about.
Yeah, and I mean that. Like I said, at the end of the day, anybody that's even considering running a wrestling promotion, or if you're just starting and just getting into running wrestling promotions, just remember, it's about the fans. It's not about you. It's not, you know. Granted, everybody wants to make money. You don't want to come into this thing losing money.
No.
If you want to make money, put on shows that makes the fans happy, because the fans are the ones that brings the money in, not you. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You want to keep your fans happy because legitimately they're why I'm here.
Right.
They're why we do what we do, put our bodies on the line the way we do. Whether you love us, whether you hate us, the fans is what it's all about. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it was back then. And that's the way it should be today.
That's right. Robert, thank you again.
Again, May the 11th is our next one.
Y'all hear this?
May the 11th, Wentworth Armory, 292 NC Highway 65, Reidsville, North Carolina, 27320. That's the address for the Armory. Tickets, like I said, front row is $8. General admission's $5. Kids 5 and under is free. Concessions, all that good stuff will be available. Hot dogs, nachos, everything else. Come on out, enjoy a good time. Our 2-year anniversary show is June the 8th. That'll be the follow-up to the May the 11th deal. Right now we're doing once a month. Like I said, I'm hoping to expand on that a little bit, but right now that's just the schedule we got going. And I hope to see everybody there. And Tim, thank you again. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you doing this. And like I said,
be there, be square.
HCWA, baby. Wrestling's what it's all about. Thank you, guys.